Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I'm a security researcher with Varonis, and today we have a very special guest on. Nick, you're not Nick. They told me
What a
Nick was going to...
surprise.
Okay, all right, well, sorry. We have instead Michael number 3, a.k.a. James, on the show today, who I'm very excited to have back after... Oh, there we go. I was going to say, why are you not in uniform? But now you're in uniform. You
Exactly.
guys might not have
I'm uniform
recognized
girl.
James immediately, but hopefully you do now. James is the programmer and researcher who has showed us a little bit about different operating systems. James, welcome so much back to the show. Where have you been?
Thanks
We
for
got
that.
a sporadic communication from Michael number 1, and then you kind of disappeared for like a week and a half or so. Where have you been?
I had to just don't worry about
Right.
it. Those two events weren't
Got it.
connected.
All right. Won't ask
I'm
any further
sure.
questions. Cool. Well, it's so good to
Thank you.
have you back on the show. And frankly, it's good to have you on a Friday show because we get to answer a couple questions, except about where James has been. Please do not ask any questions about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you have any questions,
You
we can answer those. And we're also going to do some different InfoSec events that have happened over the week and a couple tools that we found that look interesting. Just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you to Zam also for being here, helping to organize stuff. And I also wanted to say thank you, Zam, for the Temple OS t-shirt that he is sending to me. I have never been so excited for a t-shirt before. So yeah, I know.
What?
I'm sorry if you didn't get this lucky, but if you want to switch to my screen very briefly, this is my new favorite object. This is coming to me. Hopefully you will be able to see it on me as early as next week. But yes, this Temple OS shirt is badass and cool, and a great reward for our episode featuring Temple OS. So James, I'm sure you'll get one of these eventually. It's just like ever since like the UK left like the EU, it's just kind of like hard to like ship there. You understand, I'm sure. Right.
I understand. No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
That's so cool though.
seriously, this shirt is badass, and I'm gonna wear it in public, and anybody that like recognizes it is gonna be a good conversation. I feel like. All right, so another thing that I wanted to show off is, James, I'm not sure if I totally showed you the preview for the next episode we have of our Hack 5 show, but it is pretty outstanding, and I wanted to show it to you. So if we could switch back to my screen, I'll go ahead and play it shortly. So there's no audio on this yet, but we are doing a version of our macros skit where we're basically showing what can happen if you enable macros if your adversary is like the Russian GRU cyber warfare unit. So this, as you can see, is a drone strike, which also has a flying piece of metal which came mere feet away from our production manager, who was not wearing eye protection and had no barricade between him and this flying piece of shrapnel. So that was kind of my bad because I misjudged the amount of explosive needed to, I guess, throw this sucker off the table. But I think the end result is pretty good. So if you guys want to check it out, we have a episode on Hack 5 coming out that features this demonstration, and hopefully you guys like it because it was certainly incredibly dangerous to film. James, what do you think? Accurate depiction,
That looks
right?
so cool. Yeah, that's exactly what's gonna
And
happen
this
to
is
you
why you run
if you.
Plebs, right?
I run Temple
Okay,
OS
well,
now,
yeah, of
but
course. Like, but previously Quebs and now Temple OS. Like, the whole point is to prevent an attack like this. You know, if this GRU cyber warfare officer had attempted to log into your Temple OS computer and set off the hidden payload, probably wouldn't have worked. So, just you live and learn. But yeah, hopefully that will come out in the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, we have other Hack 5 episodes coming out, so check those out as well. Cool. All right, away from my screen. So we have a bunch of different things to go through today. Some of them are related to the presentation I did this week. James, did I complain to you about the presentation that I needed to do this week on low sophistication, high impact ransomware attacks?
I
Okay,
don't think
so I had this presentation where here at Varonis, we like to do what we call like attack labs, where we show off attacks that are actually very practical and that actually happen. And both customers and people that are thinking about being customers and just regular people can attend and watch and see these attacks unfold from the attacker's perspective. Now, one of my jobs is coming up with new ones, which is incredibly difficult and involves a lot of moving pieces. So yesterday, I had to create a virtual machine on my computer while also using a Raspberry Pi 400, which the screen was then plugged into my computer, and I was using OBS to have a window of the attacker computer, the Raspberry Pi, and a window of the virtual machine victim computer on the same window while also doing a slideshow. It was horrifyingly difficult. There were tons of moving pieces. And James, in the future, if we could switch to my screen for a second, I want to know, is this unethical? I was so tempted to just alias all of my commands to bash scripts. So as soon as I type something, it just instantly gives me back the expected command, and maybe with some timing to make it look like it's thinking a little bit. Is this unethical, or do you think anybody would notice?
I don't think
anybody would notice either. I decided not to do it, and my reward was my virtual machine, which, by the way, I was so nervous that I stayed up until 3 a.m. This presentation was at 8 in the morning. I stayed up till 3 a.m. I set up my virtual machine. I tested everything. It worked. I left my computer open all night, just waiting pristine, and at some point, my virtual machine connected to a different network and ruined 10 minutes of the presentation because I just sat there I don't know what's not working. I don't know what's not working. It should be working. So if you've ever done a live presentation, you know, especially the more moving pieces, the more horrifying they are. I sincerely regret not doing this. I should have done this. I don't know why I didn't do this. So if you are coming up with a presentation, please just try to make it as simple as possible, because while learning the process of creating a new demonstration for showing off an attack, it was savage, I will say. I also didn't even get to finish. So here, I got to my maybe 12th slide, and then I just attacked the network instead, and that's as far as I got. So yeah, if anybody checked out this presentation, or if you want to check out another one of these presentations, go ahead and take a look at the Varonis Attack Labs. I'll be doing more of them. I usually do one per month. They are really in-depth. That's why they make me so nervous. And last time, or rather yesterday, what I ended up showing off was how you can go from completely outside of a Wi-Fi network to breaking into that network, finding interesting services like an FTP file share, and then using a couple lines of Python to ransomware every single file on that file share while simultaneously saving a copy just in case you wanted to blackmail the person instead. Obviously, we're taking the perspective of the attacker and just showing off how you can do this on a $35 Raspberry Pi computer. But these attack labs are often for up to 500 people. So as soon as something just stops working in the middle, my heart just starts racing. I'm you know what's funny? The weather. Let's talk about that for about a minute while I just try to find out why this isn't working. And then I try my backup, that's not working. I'm okay, I should have just aliased this whole thing. So yeah. Guess the long and short of that is I am still stressed out from this presentation, but if you want to check these out, they're really cool, and I get to be really creative when I come up with these scenarios. So, you know, ransomwaring a bunch of data on someone's office file share is something that not everyone thinks of, but I've seen lots of businesses that are actually set up this way. James, can you think of a business that might have a file share with important files on it that's connected to a Wi-Fi network that's for the office or something like that?
Probably a lot of businesses.
Name one.
Name one. I don't know.
Well, no, I'm just meaning can you name one example of a business that might be set up that way?
With a file share connected to
basically Wi-Fi, yeah,
Wi-Fi
not necessarily intentionally, but they have Wi-Fi and they've got a local file share, and they don't bother to separate them.
Naming specifics.
I mean, just guess, guess what one, a theoretical one.
A theoretic, man, I don't know. What do you mean?
Okay, if a business is a class, name one instance of that class which might be configured this way. How's that, programmer? A doctor's office, James? Like a school? A city council? Okay. Abstract thinking, maybe we'll stick to, I forget, engineers. Okay, sorry. So not thinking creatively or abstractly at all. Yes, like the typical use case for this sort of thing would be like a logistics business, James, which maybe is storing a bunch of tracking information or order information for customers, or maybe like a small medical office, like a specialist that's holding a bunch of X-ray results or medical files or billing stuff, or a small accounting department that maybe needs to share files between different departments in the same office. Like all these things are very likely to have maybe a local file share that some dude just set up like a while ago. So James might not be able to think of one, but there are plenty of different businesses out here that actually have this set up. And if you are one of them, please don't do that. All right. Let's go ahead and go to some of the other things I dug up today. James, have you ever met Jonty, aka Satanic?
I've known him for a long time, but I never actually got to meet him.
Sad.
But
Yeah, same deal. I was supposed to meet him the same time I met you, and then he didn't manage to make it to C3. But he showed up on the stream. So if you guys want to check out Satanic, aka Jonty, his premiere on our show, he did a great episode on what it was like to build an Arduino, kind of what it is designed for, and what some of his future plans are. So we're hoping to have him back again soon, but I was really excited to get another YouTube creator on the show, and I'm going to try to get some more people like Satanic, as well as just him back again soon. So if you like that episode or if you missed it, go ahead and check it out, because I think it was just really cool to get some other people who have been creating content for as long as Jonty has. Frankly, I think the stuff he makes is really cool, and the way that he kind of straddles the gap between making like hardware and also making YouTube videos. Yeah, I'm trying to learn from that and do a bit of it myself. So you should definitely check out this episode. You can find it on SecurityFWD, the YouTube channel, or you can just go to hackingwithfriends.com.
I've actually known him since he did the original crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah?
I've been an admin on his Discord server since like way back when. Since he basically before he made the first Arduino. That's how I met our like group. Is I got in and I met him and I met the people
We
around
should
there.
just have like a group, I guess, like like a group live stream at some point, since like we all know each other at this point. And if we wanted to make it even more chaotic, we can invite Stefan as well. Yeah, that would be chaos. But like, how would you guys like that? 4 different content creators all on the same stream, which is basically also just like us at C3. Like, well, it used to be every year. So, well, that would be nice to do a virtual version of that. So one thing I wanted to shout out was Coded Bias. A lot of people might have seen like the Netflix documentary about like Facebook or the social network, but this is a really good documentary on the way that, well, I mean, okay, I'm just gonna say it's a really good documentary if you are looking for something along the lines of like the social network or something like that that explains the way some of these things work. I really like this one, so it's worth checking out. Don't want to give too much away, but yeah, I thought it was worth a shout out. James,
it's about facial recognition, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, James, did you hear about the API case against Oracle and how Google just won that, and kind of like what the implications of that are? Okay, so this has been a really, really long-running like legal battle between Google and Oracle about whether Google was allowed to use some of the intellectual property of Oracle in the code for Android. And this was basically based around like an API that was like repurposed or reused. And in the end, it was ruled in Google's favor. So this has implications about the way that code can be reused or the way that people can base a project on existing work. And it's just an interesting kind of advancement in the way that software code and the law have advanced and kind of come into focus. So this was something that nobody really know exactly which way it was going to go, and it's interesting that it's finally been ruled on. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the implications this will have on the way companies like Google or even smaller companies can use intellectual property that already exists, then go ahead and read into the story, because yeah, it has some interesting ramifications. All right, so I recently took advantage of, I guess, this next thing right here, where if you live in California and you actually have data privacy laws in the United States that apply to you, you can opt out of the sale of your data by LexisNexis. LexisNexia. Sorry, they're very close. So which I guess is also just LexisNexis. Okay, all right. So there's not really good data privacy laws in the United States that cover everywhere, but in California, there's CCPA, which gives you some rights when it comes to the way that your data is being used and the way that you can request to opt out of this. If you live in another state, then it's still kind of just like open season on your data, and there's not really a lot you can do unless there's some other law that applies. So this is an interesting opportunity for anybody who lives in California to remove themselves from this data catalog and also be able to see all the information that's been collected on you. I went ahead and did this, so I'm expecting to see like a big chunk of like dossier that is actually being sold to ICE and CBP. So the data gathering operations by these government organizations is kind of disturbing because this is information that's gathered by third parties and then sold to these agencies. And this information isn't necessarily accurate, and you don't have the ability to see or dispute it like in a lot of different states in the United States. So James, can you see why that might be a little invasive if like a third party like this isn't exactly like a credit score here. Like they're basically gathering information about you, which may or may not be accurate, and reporting them to like law enforcement agencies that you would probably have to deal with if you were going in or out of the country.
Yeah, definitely a lot of potential issues there.
And some of this stuff is, you can see fleet monitoring companies like Geotab and Spyron. This is stuff that does things like vehicle recognition or license plate logging, and all this sort of technology is really, really, really invasive and collects data about users, obviously without their consent in most cases, and then sells it. And this data, again, could be wrong. There could be issues with the data. There could be issues with the underlying technology that's gathering the data. And really the problem here is like, because the data isn't really able to be verified, it's just going to be presumably taken at face value by these agencies that are consuming this data. It's pretty sketchy. And if you live in California, I would highly advise you take the advantage to figure out what information this company has about you that it's marketing and selling, and maybe request that it be deleted and not sold. I have, again, already done this. There are some benefits to being in California. So hopefully there will be more data privacy laws that make it so that you can have better control over your data. Because seriously, this kind of thing gets creepy when it starts getting weighed into the calculations that law enforcement makes when it comes to whether or not like you're a threat or whether it's worth it to bother you about something. If these companies that are gathering a lot of data don't do a good job of doing so, or don't have great transparency, or surprise, surprise, are more interested in the money than providing high quality data, then it's probably pretty easy for them to get away with giving data that has a lot of inconsistencies in it and could cause problems for you in the future, which in my opinion is not fair. So I think California has it right when it comes to having data privacy laws that prevent this sort of practice, or at least allow you some oversight in making sure the data that's being collected about you is accurate. Because without that oversight, like, it's just creepy and weird and has real world implications on the way you'll be treated when you interact with these agencies. Yeah, so again, please opt out if you can, and if that matters to you. And this is kind of along the same vein. James, how do you feel when you get a notification that one of your friends just uploaded their contact information to an app, and the app is now like requesting that you sign up, or like otherwise like contacting you? Right?
No, thank you.
It's annoying. And I don't think that everybody understands how much it irritates some people to like upload your entire contact book to an application if like that person doesn't have any desire to be like have their name, their phone number, and whatever other information like uploaded to that application and made kind of like the property of that application. Like they know they know a lot more about you than they would if your friend hadn't done that, because now, even though you've never interacted with that application, they have unique identifiers about you that are creepy and could be used to start tagging or otherwise cataloging information about you. So, just from doing this, you can get a network of who somebody knows or who someone is connected to. Sorry.
Yeah, what I was going to say is even them just uploading that information is going to tell people that you know
Right.
each other, potentially, and advertisers like that. So they can probably guess your geolocation if they get enough of that information. Other stuff
Right.
too.
Yeah. I mean, if you have enough people upload their contact books, then you essentially see a network of who knows who. and you can fill in the blanks of people who haven't signed up for a social network. Like at that point, like your platform is aware of this person, even if they've never interacted with the app. And the metadata you get from the people who are connected to them is, as you said, enough to geolocate that person, infer maybe their interest, maybe infer some of the social groups. Where if you have all these people feeding information into a platform like what school they go to or what hometown they're from, you can start to infer, hey, all these people have this factor in common and they know this person. It's very likely that they're all part of the same social group. So you can infer where someone works. You can infer where someone goes to school. You can even start to infer relationships based on this sort of thing. So I find it really, really in poor taste to upload data that someone shares with you, like like a piece of contact information, so you can communicate with them. That's not them giving you the right to upload, that piece of contact information to every single social media network that you're a part of. Because like that's not your data to upload. So I like this point because it's a personal pet peeve. Like every time I get some like notification from some app I've never interacted with, and it's just like, hey, like so and so just signed up for this, you should too. I'm like, no, and who gave you permission to contact me? Because like I don't want anything to do with what you're doing, and no, just no. So yeah, that's no, don't like it. If an app asks you to upload your contact data and like you don't see any clear benefit to that, please don't, for the sake of your friends. All right, let's go on to different tools. Or actually, I'm gonna take a look at the comments because I'm sure we have some that are interesting. We can probably cut away from my screen. So one question is, how do they determine if you live in California? If you're trying to get your information erased, like you need to have a California ID. So when you sign up for the process, it asks you a bunch of like personal information, and also they mail the packet of information physically to you. It's not one of those things where you wait like a couple hours or a day for it to gather your data and then they just like have it available for download. No. They decided to be kind of gatekeepy, but admittedly, it does take care of the problem of verifying that you live in California by shipping the data about you to California. And again, there's a second form of identification where you have to provide like your California ID or driver's license number, and that will allow them to determine that you live in California and allow you to either delete your data or just keep happily selling it no matter what. We also had a LinkedIn user mention, needless to mention social engineering in relation to the subject as well. Yes, social engineering always kicks things up a notch. Let's see. So, a couple people are asking for the link to remove your data. I will provide that in the chat, and also we'll probably put it on the YouTube video, plus it is on my Twitter. So if you want to check it out on my Twitter feed, it's @CodyKinsey. I retweeted this just to make sure that, you guys can have some visibility on that. Zam also mentioned that law firms use their data mostly for case law, but it's expanded to a ton of data over the past decade or so. So yeah, it's interesting that these third-party data providers, these people organize like either public data or they try to like find data sources and structure it, and then they sell that structured data to lots of different people. But the problem is the data, again, is only as good as the way that it's gathered. It's only as good as it has people to verify that it's good, and it's only as good as the underlying algorithms that are collecting, verifying, and structuring it. So there's tons and tons and tons of, doing OSINT, I have to train investigators to teach these data sources as, skeptical, like as something that you should take with a grain of salt, because this thing might have found like a court document or like a court filing or something that was filed in error and then taken down. And because it doesn't have any way of handling that, it will accept this as fact, put it up on the secondary data source, and then even if this thing was filed in error, it was wrong, there were mistakes and it was corrected later, these like third-party data sources will ingest them, treat them as fact, and then present them to like law offices or like Immigration and Border Control or whatever as fact. So I constantly have to train journalists. It's like, it doesn't matter how expensive this service is. It doesn't matter how nice the user interface is or how much data it finds. You still have to go back to the primary source data and verify that like, this is something that really exists, because without doing so, you can't publish it. And I think the same kind of standard should be applied for data sources that are purchased by like law enforcement agencies and other stuff. Like, if they're going to be making determinations on it, it's really important that that data be verified and that you, the consumer, have the ability to report inconsistencies and limit the way that it's being used, especially if it's detrimental to what you're trying to do. Yeah, and another comment from them is being able to opt out of their system is huge. They have a huge legal database with a lot of personal information. So I will not tell you the specifics of what are inside the file that is being currently sent to my apartment in Los Angeles, but I will let you know what types of data were in there. So if you're curious about like what kind of information is being marketed and sold about people from one of these third-party data providers, these kind of reports are often like somewhat expensive. So I'm excited to get access to mine, if not a little bit horrified. And I'm even more excited to tell them to delete it. So yeah, I'm just dreading what's going to be in there. So also Chaos says that he saw the example I mentioned, which again, James was struggling to come up with an instance of at a medical facility. And frankly, like you'll see this sort of stuff with like billing information. You'll see it with like x-rays, like you'll see it with dental records. Like just because people need a place to put files that's local and that's easy to like modify or change or whatever, if you just have one IT guy swing by and set up a local file share, that's often as far as some of these smaller businesses or specialists go. And we also see this with contractors, like smaller offices or smaller operations that are servicing a larger operation. Like often these are great entry points for attacks because they have, let's say, less sophistication with their IT setup, which means they will often have local services running that a hacker would be really interested in. It's also nice to see some people from LinkedIn. Hello, Nick. And also 2 emotional 50 bricks into school bag. So one question he had was why pen testers are more interested in Nmap/Metasploit and CVEs and are not interested in logical flaws and authentication flaws. James, do you have a comment on that?
I feel like people are definitely interested in both. And
I'm not.
I feel like finding like, okay, logical and authentication flaws. I feel like that's actually finding an exploit, whereas he's comparing tools to what you're looking for.
I would say accessibility. If you're somebody who does this stuff all day, like using a predefined set of tools that works like 80 or 90% of the time is so much faster than like writing your own stuff. So basically you're talking about the difference between a security researcher and a pen tester. A pen tester is going to be like fuzzing and looking for logical flaws because their job is like coming up with exploits that lead to tools or finding, you know, the things that you're talking about. Whereas a pen tester, like their job is to find out whether, you know, somebody with a low to medium amount of skill throwing, you know, what's available out there with a certain amount of, with a certain amount of knowledge maybe would be able to do against a company and solving the immediate hot issues that are going to get you in trouble. Like they're not here to write like a whole new suite of tools to attack things. Like they're here to emulate an attacker, and the more you pay them, the more of an advanced attacker they will emulate. That's pretty much how the relationship works. So for most people, they're gonna want to learn Nmap and Metasploit because it allows them to do their job and you know, run reports and like do all this stuff that is very practical to a pen tester. But again, if you were a security researcher and you only used Nmap and Metasploit, like you would have to come up with something new. You'd have to do a trick basically in order to stay, you know, employed. So different jobs in cybersecurity, I would say, is why. And the pen testing role is a lot more accessible to the average person because you don't need a computer science degree. You just need to be able to learn how to use Linux tools and understand a little bit of networking. So that's why those tools tend to be more popular. Hey, also, yeah, everyone noticed my Bass Pro Shop hat and says that I guess that I like to fish. That was an excellent pun. Yeah, and this is an excellent hat, so thank you for noticing. All right, let's go ahead, and I think we're going to go back to some of the tools that we picked out today. There wasn't a lot of super interesting tools, but I wanted to shout out a couple that you might want to check out. Again, so disclaimer for this piece, these are tools that we haven't actually gone ahead and checked out yet, but we're looking at doing episodes on, so we always have kind of a short list of different tools that seem interesting or seem like they might be worth checking out. And with the caveat that, again, we haven't tested them, so if they don't work, please don't blame us. They also might have backdoors. Haven't read the source code. Up to you. So taking a look at the first project, Migrate? Sure. I like this because it's named after a fictional character. Got it. A fictional French police detective created by Georges Simenon. His investigation method is based on understanding the personality of different people and their interactions. Cool, badass, love it. It's got like a backstory and it's got this like spooky little icon. The dude's smoking a little pipe. Hell yeah. So the purpose of this is to collect a dossier on a person by username only. So I really like usernames in OSINT investigations because often if you get one or two screen names or usernames, you can track a person across the internet because people love just getting that username and being consistent with it. I don't know why. It's like an identity thing. There are, of course, examples of people that don't do this. So if you're in the comments and you're just like, I have a separate username for every single account on the internet, congratulations, you're a minority. That's great. But like, most people will have a username that they use pretty consistently. And if you can use a tool like Sherlock, for example, you can find every different instance of them using that username on the internet. Okay, we've covered that before. What I like about this is it starts to extract personal information and create a dossier on that person by scraping a little bit from each one, rather than just telling you where they exist. James, interesting? Right?
Very. I always wonder how well
of
these
course.
things work.
I find that API-based Python tools, especially if they have like good good vitals on GitHub. Like you can see this has like 323 stars. It doesn't have like a lot. Well, okay, it has 7 issues, but whatever. And it was last updated 4 days ago. Like this all looks like pretty good. So I find that these tend to be pretty robust because they're plugging into data sources and pulling information back. So as long as the data source or the API of the data source you're plugging into is compatible, then you should be able to pull some information. Now, one thing I don't like about tools like this is often it requires API keys. But, oh, look at this. I also have to say thank you to every developer who has the open in Google Cloud Shell, run on REPL.it, and open in Colab. Do you know what this is, James?
I think those are like all online coding platforms, right? So you could run the scripts online rather than on your machine.
James, and shame on you as a developer for not including these in every single project, except for REPL.it because that's just Python. So I can go ahead and just run this. And if I want to try it out, like it's pretty easy to either run this in the Google Cloud Shell editor, which I am probably not actually going to like wait to open, or you can do on, oh my God, that's not the right thing, on REPL.it or any of these other ways of just running this in the cloud. I find for OSINT investigations, if your tool has this, I can teach it to journalists. If your tool does not have this, I have to teach them how to install a Python tool from the command line, and you can just expect me to skip it. So I really, really like the way that this tool is laid out and presented. Look at this. I've now downloaded it, and I can go ahead and try this tool out if I want to. Whether or not we have time to do that on the show, I actually don't know. Maybe not. But I still think that this is a really, really cool way of presenting your tool if you want people to use it. Go ahead and just have it install itself in someone's Google Cloud Shell, and provided they have a free Google account, like they should be able to just run your tool. Although I will say the other approach to this is REPL.it. By the way, if you guys haven't seen this before, I hope I'm blowing your mind because when I first learned about this, I was so happy. REPL.it is another service. On this one, I don't think you have to have a Google account. Oh, lame. They made it so you do have to log in. Okay. Well, you didn't used to. So I'm gonna go back and say probably the Cloud Shell. But yeah, and you can also open it in Google Colab. So for these command line Python OSINT tools, and there are a couple of them, like Sherlock and some other ones, like if you want to run them on Google Cloud Shell, I think that sometimes that's actually the best way to do it. You can just download the results if it comes back. You don't need to rely on like which system you're using. I find it to be extremely convenient to do this sort of thing. So thank you to this developer for documenting in this way, but you can see here a animation. Oh God, I love this person. You can see an animation of what it looks like to use this tool and begin pulling down information. So you can see we're getting full name, image, the link to the image. Programmatically, you could use this to scrape data and like pull down the images that are discovered. I think that this is a really interesting tool, and so far it looks like it doesn't require an API key, which makes me like it even more. Oh, what? And it even has a example report. Supposed personal data, full name, Alex M.A., gender M, France, geotags, interests, first seen, brief, search by username, returned one accounts, and then user ID, legacy ID, username, name, image, website, Facebook link. Oh, cool. So it even shows if they have links publicly available on these platforms, it shows where they go. So then it even generates a link, like a link analysis graph where you can start to see like patterns or other sorts of structured data and how it comes back. Oh, what? And there's a link to the full. Who is this person? I feel like we should be friends because like then I can introduce them to Stefan, who also like makes sure every project is meticulously documented. Okay, I really like this project. Like I think it's super cool. So
Yeah, that documentation is
yeah, I
actually
went from like lukewarm about this to like this person has put like all their cards on the table. Is like, this is how you run my tool. This is what the graph looks like. This is an animation of the output. This is the full text output. So if you want to like build off of it, you can use it. This is how to install it. And hey, if you don't want to install it, this is the button you can click to run it right now. 10 out of 10. Like I don't, again, having not used this tool, I can't say if it's like, like Russian, like cyber backdoored malware, but just from its appearance and the number of people that have used it and the way that's been documented, I give this a 10 out of 10 for just like clarity, an awesome, again, dude smoking a pipe icon, plus like a very, very well documented breakdown of what this is, what it's for, and how to use it. So I would check this out. I recommend this tool. I think that it's going to be a good one, and I might need to start including it in my OSINT training. So another one is Secret Scanner. So this one is pretty self-explanatory. James, what do you think the Secret Scanner does? There you go, James. It scans for secrets. Yep, that's what it does. So what this does, and oh yeah, it appears that this is written in Go, your favorite language. People often say that Go is better than other languages like
Hey,
okay, all right,
hey.
okay, sorry.
Careful.
Anyway, so this Go
get
project
angry.
basically allows you to take a look at an image or a container and try to find things like API keys, encryption keys, SSH keys, tokens, and other sorts of stuff. So if you suspect that a developer might have left some of this stuff in there, or if you want to identify like default credentials or other things that are either hard-coded or left in a image, then you can do that. And I think that that is pretty cool. Again, you can't run this in Google Cloud Shell, but there is sample output, so that makes me happy. So you can see, you can initialize this, run a test, it does all this stuff. There's a bunch of output. Again, I'm sorry, coming off of the first one, it's just very difficult to be impressed. But I still think this is definitely worth checking out if you want to examine Docker images or other sorts of images for secrets, because I find a lot of these breaches happen because something is accidentally left in, like an API key or something else that allows an attacker to get access to something they're not supposed to. So again, very, very useful tool and helpful for anybody that does security research by digging around in the trash for secrets. And frankly, that is something that very often yields results. Not quite. Okay, never mind. This actually has more users. It has 975 users, and it was updated 22 days ago. And I see that there's actually no reported issues. So I would say I'd give this one like a 6 out of 10, just because it's not as beautifully documented, and I'm partially blind from the last project, just like wowing me. Again, that is just on its documentation. I have not used this tool. That is not a representation of how well this tool works or how useful it is. This is just a new tab. There's nothing here. Okay, so that's it for the tools we want to show off. Not a lot of them this week, but I wanted to at least give a couple shout outs because it's always good to know what's out there. And if any developers have any tools that you want us to check out, please send me the GitHub link. And please, if less than like 50 people have ever used your tool, like if there's like less than 50 like GitHub likes, like there's just a lot of like malware campaigns against researchers right now. So like if you've got a community tool that people like, please send it to us. Or if you know of one that we haven't covered, please send it to us. If you have a tool that no one's ever downloaded that has a backdoor in it, please stop sending those to me. But yeah. So let's go ahead and look at some questions before we go into the news, because we've got a good amount of time. So one question was, is this like the OSINT framework? So the OSINT framework is, James, do you know what the OSINT framework is? Okay, so the OSINT framework is a really great resource that I always show to journalists. Let me just pull it up real quick. We can go over to my screen now. So the OSINT framework is just a list of constantly updated resources in this really awesome kind of interface. So James, let's say that you got someone's phone number. And like, let's say that you're talking to someone who's like really mysterious and you get their number, but there's something a little weird about them. Like maybe they're a spy or something. I don't know. And you want to be able to take that piece of information and expand it. There's no backstory here. Stop smiling, James. So if you had that phone number, you could go ahead and maybe click on the phone number section or telephone number section, and it will expand out into voicemail or international. So if you are dealing with any of those use cases, like a voicemail, you can see slide dial, which allows you to, I think like it allows you to like directly cut to someone's voicemail without like actually ringing their phone. So you can basically like inject a voicemail into someone's phone if that's like something you need to do. And then it also gives a list of different resources you can use to take a phone number as your initial clue and get more information out of it. So like this is just like a list of different tools you can use to like squeeze data out of that first clue. So you have everything from like Truecaller, People API, and these will just basically link you directly. And again, this needs to be updated pretty often because these data sources go stale. So this one doesn't even go anywhere. Super lame. But some of these do. So Truecaller, if I click on that, it'll go here and it lets me do an initial search. So this is just the kind of thing that you can use to go through and see what free tools are available for you to take one breadcrumb and go and learn more stuff. So let's say instead you want to learn more about dating, James. Well, we can open this sucker up and guess what? You got the hot match. Now you can go directly to match.com, plentyoffish.com, eHarmony, or James's favorite, Farmers Only. I'm sorry, is Zeus a dating site? I thought that was like an IT support website. Okay, whatever. So then we also got OkCupid, Tinder, Wamba.com, Adult Friend Finder, James, cover your ears. Ashley Madison, James, cover your ears again. Beautifulpeople.com, James, you can uncover your ears. And then Badoo, Spark.com, Meetup, Black People Meet, and then reviews of users. What the hell is that? No, I hate these websites. So okay, ever since I started, since I started doing OSINT, these websites have been popping up. I just have to tell a little side story. So when this was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing business intelligence at a startup, and we were tasked with learning about our competitors. So it came down to me, hey, we need you to start looking at these like startups and figure out what their founders are like. So I start going down the rabbit hole of all these data sources, and I find this weird one that is a man rating website for women. And it basically allows you to describe in detail everything that went right or wrong on a failed date to the internet, at which point you tag it to this person's actual photo and biography so that it lists a string of encounters this person has had with women. James, do you want to live on this?
People don't actually.
James, do you want to live on this planet anymore?
Right? No, I would never want that. I'm dating under
but that's also creepy, James. That's the thing. Like,
yeah, I know that's creepy, but you know what's more creepy? Somebody being able to like look at the history of like James's dating reviews. Like, I don't. What the heck, man?
Okay, I'm gonna look up Zuckerberg. This is a German website. Germany has some pretty strong like laws against like data collection, I thought. Okay, what about woman savers?
They're under GDPR.
Zuckerberg.
Is it like a safety thing, or is it like literally like, you know, he underperformed, if you get what I mean?
It's supposed to be like a safety thing, but when the service that I'm referencing now was taken down because everybody hated it and it was unethical. And like if you expand the concept, like it's a pretty terrible idea to have unverified users rating human beings. So what it was I was able to find like 3 women who had gone on a date with this founder, and described him mostly to be just like a person that was obsessed with wealth and not a very nice dude. So like it wasn't really like much about this is a safe person to date. It was like, he's got a lot of personality flaws, and frankly, I don't think that he's worth the time. Which, like, dude, that's rough. Like, not only did you fail your date, but now your date is out there, like, telling other people you're terrible. Sorry, that kind of took a left turn. I wasn't expecting these data sources to be listed, but frankly, as an OSINT researcher, I'm always curious about even unethical data sources that pop up and then get whacked down again. So it looks like womensavers.com doesn't have any information about Zuckerberg, which frankly, I think we both know is impossible. So this website must be malfunctioning, because if there's no entry for Zuckerberg on womensavers.com, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that lizard is definitely a danger.
So, whoa, that's a very strong statement. At this point, I wish to differentiate the statements of our guest from the rest of the show.
My opinions are my own.
Any assertion that there's lizard people is strictly on James. OSINT Framework, great resource. True Data and Women Savers, maybe not a great resource. I'm going to go ahead and put those back. Pretend like I never saw them. But if you want to have your face melted off, I guess, by all the different data sources that are possible to take a single clue and learn more about a person, then this is the resource to check out. So social networks, like all this stuff, all of it is really good to be able to figure out where someone might have some information or some data. So, even IP addresses. That's very cool. All right. So speaking of Zuckerberg, that's not Zuckerberg. There we go. Speaking of Zuckerberg, did you guys know that it's totally not their fault that all of your guys' data, 533 million Facebook users' data has been released for free online?
It's totally not their fault.
Yeah, it's not. I'm sorry, James. It's not a bug. It was a feature, and then they rolled back that feature. Isn't that great? Don't you feel better?
If there's an ability for somebody to grab personal information off 500 million people from your website, that's a bug.
No, James. It was a feature, but then somebody abused their terms of service, which is not illegal, but it's just wrong. Isn't that sad? How could someone just go on the internet and take advantage of this feature? So sad that this one person just did that, I guess. And it's just comforting to know that this giant corporation who specializes in collecting your data, marketing it, analyzing it, digesting it, and using it to manipulate you is not guilty at all for what happens when that data they've collected gets out there. That's just too bad. It's on you guys. Maybe just don't share so much data if you don't want Facebook to leak it, right? That's what they say. So, that's super, it's just, they just scrape because of a vulnerability, just a feature that they just rolled back. So, so of course, like, it's not like it's your password or anything, but it is a ton of linked personal data. It's like structured personal data that allows people to automatically include details about you during scams. So don't be surprised if you get like some weird phone call from someone who knows maybe your contacts or like some other information about you, thanks to Mr. Zuck. So they've been calling this breach You Got Sucked. And if you want to see if you got sucked, you can go to haveibeenpwned.com, and this data breach is now up there. So I deleted my Facebook just immediately before this breach. So I did not find myself, which was amazing for once. But yeah, a lot of people are finding themselves, and I'm planning on just like downloading this data breach and just like having it as a database just so I can go through it and look at it, because it's available online. It's pretty easy to find at this point, and it will be used by cyber criminals. So it's interesting to know how much of this information is useful in like a phishing email or a phishing phone call. I suspect that disabled people, like people that are older, like people that might not be as suspicious, if someone calls them, acts like they should be trusted, and uses like personal details repeatedly on the phone, I suspect that those people might be vulnerable to these sorts of attacks, which is why it really sucks that companies like Facebook can create this issue and then kind of wash their hands with it and be like, whoopsie, can you believe the nerve of some people to go ahead and just take your data off of our big website that was serving up your data? It's crazy. So
let's also like acknowledge that this has been around for like 2 years now. This breach was actually in 2019, but it's only now just been kind of widely shared. So it was probably in a few people's hands
Yes,
before
yeah, yeah.
now.
So it's
And
available
I
for
guess they,
free now. Before, it was available for pay.
yes, I don't know how much money, but yeah.
Yeah,
Some of the data was apparently cell number, name, location, birthday, bio, and email addresses for some people. So
wow. So one tool that
personal
was also
information.
derived from this is what's amazing is people will find ways of making this data useful. So it looks like somebody was selling an automated bot that could provide a phone number for hundreds of millions of Facebook users for a price. So the way this kind of like ends up working is like for scammers or people that are looking for lots of phone numbers, people can construct a tool that's able to use this data breach to like give in a person's phone number, give you information that allows you to contact them directly. And for scammers, this is a dream. So yeah, very lame and not cool that this data is out there. But again, you know, unlike certain companies like, I don't know, like credit monitoring companies that recently breached this kind of data as well, I don't think that there's going to be any legal action here or any sort of like settlement or even like any sort of problem, which is lame because the victims of this are, again, going to be like older people and people that can be scammed more easily by people trying to manipulate them with cobbled together personal data online. So if you have grandparents or any other people that like answer the phone and will just start talking to people regardless of whether or not they're obvious scammers, this is going to give scammers even more ammunition. So maybe let them know about this. And there's also more information about the Facebook data breach that you can check out here. This is their official statement. We believe the data in question was scraped from people's Facebook profiles by malicious actors using our contact importer prior to September 2019. Not like our contact importer had a flaw which allowed malicious actors to like do whatever the hell they want. They're like, malicious actors did a bad thing to our precious vulnerable importer. Okay, whatever.
No, not
Oh,
vulnerable.
sorry,
It was a
our
feature.
precious full-featured importer. Now, because of these bad actors, we must roll back these delightful features, and our users must suffer. Okay, whatever, Facebook. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna like make fun of them anymore because like I think we're live on Facebook, but I'm just gonna roll over to the next story. All right, James. Oh wow, I have 2 stories remaining. That's very interesting. TechnologyReview.com. All right, so this story was in the news because it was a bit controversial. Google shut down a counter-terrorism operation because they detected the vulnerability that was being exploited by it and determined that it was enough of a threat that they wanted to patch the problem rather than let it persist and have other potential bad actors go ahead and take advantage of it. Now, this has been argued both ways. For one, some people are not happy that Google stepped in and stopped a counterterrorism operation. But on the other hand, a lot of people don't think that you should be holding back 0 days that affect literally everyone when, you know, if you found them, it's very likely that other people found them too. And if Google is finding them based on your network traffic, it's very likely that adversaries could probably detect this behavior and start using it against unpatched devices, maybe back in your home country. So for advocates of cybersecurity, for everyone, I think that this is a good decision, and that in all, if your super sneaky, expensive 0 day that you bought or developed yourself is, you know, getting flagged by third-party security researchers, it's very likely that nation states or other people who have the resources and are looking for 0 days have detected it or otherwise might be able to abuse it too. So if you want to be sneaky, but don't be mad about being caught because it's literally these people's job to perfect the technology that they're working on or get it as close to perfect as possible by looking out for problems like this. And if you found a really serious problem and you're actively exploiting it in a way that's drawing attention, like, you're going to get like another country who sees it too. That's, I mean, again, this is my opinion. And then they're going to use it for something maybe not so ethical. Or maybe you'll have somebody else discover it in parallel and start marketing it as a super unethical spyware tool that gets used against people in other countries. Really, the only way that Google has to reduce the harm from this sort of thing is to just fix it. So wading into, oh, but we're using this right now. Can you just wait to make the global population more secure against this vulnerability until we're done with the super like secret America operation? Like, yes, I get it. Like those are important operations, but is like the security of everybody around you when this thing equally applies to, you know, those you're supposed to be protecting, is that like a fair consideration? Again, I would say for the role of security researchers whose job is to minimize the impact of these vulnerabilities from anybody, when you have a friendly person using a vulnerability that impacts everyone, you know, maybe again, if you're going to be sneaky, be sneaky. Like if you're creating enough noise that
Yeah,
you get
exactly.
caught, then like it's likely someone else has seen this, and it's time for us to hang up this vulnerability and maybe move on to a new one. You guys got money? Just buy a new one.
And also, that would be a dangerous precedent to set, really, that you kind of pick whose exploits you release when you normally would. Because, I mean, I don't know how Project Zero is, how related they are to Google, but, like, Google has financial interests in China, don't
Hmm.
they? So,
Okay, so there's also like an interesting kind of example of how this has worked in the past. So do you guys remember WannaCry? Yeah, so WannaCry was such a big problem because, and again, this is not, I'm nothing official. This is just like what news was reporting at the time. There was apparently an agreement between like the NSA and Microsoft where the NSA found a really big fat vulnerability. They would pay Microsoft to sit on it. And the reason they would pay them is because Microsoft would come up with a patch, get it ready to go, and they could, like in a day's notice, be able to patch this vulnerability that the NSA was using. Great, what a good system. Trust between the public and private sector. We're finally making some progress. So Eternal Blue, they just, I guess, like forgot to mention it. I mean, for one, it's like it's expensive to tell Microsoft, like you want to tell Microsoft, but like they just like forgot. Like they just decided to make this tool that exploited the living crap out of it, but then like never got around to telling Microsoft or paying them to come up with a patch. So as soon as that was stolen and released, Microsoft had no idea about it, and they had to spend a bunch of their own time and energy developing a patch. So guess what? They were super pissed because now they look terrible because this organization that like came up with the framework to like work with them didn't hold up their end because this one was like too secret. So like these are things that are based on like ethics. Like it's just like, do people around you deserve to be like less safe because you got this really important thing you're trying to do, even though your adversary could use the same exploit against your own population? Like, is that fair for you to make that decision for everyone, even when third-party researchers are finding, the stuff that you're the supposedly sneaky stuff that you're doing? Like, this is really the argument. I think that there's a lot of kind of arguments both ways, but yeah, I think I've kind of made my case pretty clear where I appreciate counterterrorism operations. I think they're important, but I also don't appreciate sitting on vulnerabilities that equally apply to U.S. citizens when third-party researchers are seeing the traffic and knowing that it exists out there. Other people will see it too. All right, so we also have, this one was sent in by Zam. So shout out to Zam, not just for the shirt, but also for some great hacker news. Caront. James, I dare you to pronounce this tool. Caronte. Yeah, thank
carrot.
you. Thank you, James. Carrot, an open source tool to analyze the network flow during capture the flag events of the attack defense type. So reassembles TCP packets captured in PCAP files to rebuild TCP connections and analyzes each connection to find user-defined patterns. Cool tool. Like there's a lot of capture the flag games that could definitely benefit from a tool like this to prevent you from needing to just like be in Wireshark or otherwise trying to like figure out PCAP files. So I love this tool. Seems very cool. Zam also sent this over, so I think that's an additional an additional endorsement. But yeah, so again, I have not tried this yet, but it seems like it would be a pretty easy thing to test out if you have some PCAP files you want to analyze, or if you're going to be in a capture the flag. And then finally, we have a PHP site user database was hacked in recent source code backdoor attack. So the story behind this is basically somebody published malicious, like a malicious backdoor to like the PHP programming language, and then the maintainers rolled it back, but not in time for some websites to get hit with this, which then created a backdoor in people who basically, I guess, like updated to a compromised version of the git.php.net server. So just another one of those supply chain attacks, sort of, where like it's. I think before we were showing there were some problems with the way that like pip installed or something like that, where you could have pip install like a malicious version of a Python library very easily by accident. It looks like there are other languages that are vulnerable to this sort of attack. So it's just interesting to see the way that these are kind of evolving. So that's all I've got for news and tools. I'm going to go back to the comments because we've got a couple minutes left, like literally 2. I don't want to see if we've got any other questions to answer. So Nick says,
Do you want to talk about sorry, do you want to talk about the thing that
oh my
David
God,
did?
please, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, do it.
No, just quickly. But so if you want to go to my screen, I have the Hackaday article up. But so our friend David, I'm not going to try and say his last name, but our friend David, he found a nice vulnerability that allows you to find and play unlisted and private YouTube videos, basically pretending to be a TV. It looks like an exploiting Google system for casting to TVs. So he has a really nice write-up here on his blog at xdavidhu.me, I suppose. And he goes through explaining how he found the vulnerability.
It was so cool
And he
to
got a
see
payout.
him get the shout out on Hackaday.
Yeah, I was like, wait, is that our David? And yeah, so this guy's from our group. He's a nice guy. And there's nice diagrams here. Just going through this quickly. Nice breakdown. And yeah, so we found this back mid-2020. And it was released, I suppose, disclosed just a few days ago. So nice to see.
Yeah, this is also, the implementation of it is really cool. I think he came up with like a catchy title for it. And being like a bug bounty person, we've gotten a lot of questions about like bug bounties lately, how you get started with it. So maybe we should have David come on at some point and just like talk about how he did this and what it's like to, kind of like do bug bounties for work.
I'm sure he'd be willing to come on.
So one of the first times I saw David was on the podcast that he and Stefan were doing for a while, and we've had basically like everybody else come on. So it would be great now that I think he even came on my podcast like a long time ago, back when I was doing that. So I think it would be great. So if you guys are interested in seeing maybe us have a guest come on that talked about finding a vulnerability like this, weaponizing it in an interesting way to make it an interesting and cool proof of concept, and then like reporting it and having it fixed, as well as just what it's like to do bug bounties in general, please let us know, and we'll reach out to David and see if he wants to do a stream with us, because that would be super cool. Yeah, so I think that is all we have for today. James and I are going to go ahead and I think record a new episode for you guys on Tuesday, looking at even more types of operating systems for hackers to try out. But yeah, it's always fun to do these Friday streams. It's exciting to see everybody in the chat. These are hitting over like 100 comments much earlier than they used to. So I think some of the crossover streams we've done with Nullbyte have really brought a lot of new people. I think we're going to hit like 20,000 subscribers in not that long, which is amazing. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's joined the stream. If you know anybody who would like it as well, or if you've maybe not like fully crossed over from like Hack5 or Nullbyte, please make sure to join us on these streams. We love answering questions, and we love suggestions for upcoming episodes. So if you want to have your voice heard, let us know, and we'll probably come up with an episode based on your idea if it's a really good one. So James, thank you for joining us again today. Thank you for putting the big boy hat on as well. It's always good to see it. And yeah, thanks again. Oh, also, shout out again, if you want to check out our sometimes co-host Killian on his own show, you can head on over to the Rona's brand channel where he does the threat update. So if you want to see what some of the more recent threats are that are going up against big businesses and how they are reacting to them, Threat Update is a great way to stay on top of the current threats that are out there affecting big companies. So that's all we have for today. Thank you to Zam and everybody else who was in the chat, keeping things organized and lively, and we will see you next time. Bye.